This is the first Taxand Global Survey that we have organized. Basically, the global topic of this survey is to address your main tax challenges for multinational companies. What are the main tax challenges are you facing today? So we have sent a questionnaire to a number of companies, of multinational companies located in more than 30 countries. Multinational companies involved in any type of business, energy, telecom, services, manufacturing, anything, no special type of business. We have circulated a questionnaire. I don't want to go in the details of the question, of course, but just to say that we have addressed three main topics. The first one, the measure of the impact of tax issues on multinational tax departments, with a series of questions. Basically, what are the key challenges are you facing as tax department? The second topic is relating to tax transparency and scrutiny, increase of number of tax audits in which areas, either really an increase of the number of tax audits, an increase of pressure or by the tax authority, local tax authorities, and on the other side, what is the effect of the recent increase on tax transparency measure on multinational operation. And the third and last chapter in this questionnaire was about strategy direction. Where are the future areas of growth for your business so that we can properly understand that. So the purpose of this presentation this morning is to reveal pressing tax challenges affecting your business, the key tax issues and trends to watch out for, Taxand's take on wider implication for you, and calls to action to help drive in performance. 7 topics will be presented. The first one about tax audits on the rise globally. This will be presented by Ernie Perez from Taxand in the US. Second topic about tax transparency increases cost of compliance, which will be presented by Nicolas Jacquot from Taxand France. The relationship improving with authorities, which will be commented and presented by Mukesh Butani from India. The transfer pricing challenge, because it's clear that there is a very specific topic on that, presented by Nicolas Jacquot as well. Exposure and reputation, presented by Mukesh Butani. International tax planning investment by Ernie Perez, and the global and the final point will relate to global tax harmonization to be presented by Nicolas Jacquot, and after that I will make a very short synthesis of the overall survey. Last slide as an introduction, food for thought. We ask you one question among others. Are tax issues on your board's agenda? To which extent do you consider that tax is really a priority for the boards of your company? The reply is a little bit surprising. As you can see, the reply is extremely different from an area to another one. But the average answer is that only 24% of the companies say that tax issue is on the board's agenda to a great extent. As you can see, the yellow trend shows that when it's to a great extent, so it means that in America, it is a priority to a great extent in 40% of the cases, in Asia, roughly in 30% of the cases, and in Europe, only in 15% of the cases, which make an average rate of 24%, which is not very high. So, as we will see later, as a conclusion of that, maybe there is areas of communication among tax management in multinational companies. Thank you, Mukesh, Ernie, Nicolas. Just as a wrap-up, just would like to summarize in just 6 points the outcome of this survey and the main Taxand's take. If it works. it works. So just summarizing 6 points. The first point is about making sure that you have a program of technological modernization to effectively manage the increase in transparency and scrutiny. This has to do, as it has already been said, it has to do with documentation, backup information, and this has to be available immediately. I mean, having a documentation to support your tax position is not new, but the pressure is higher today. So what is important is that documentation is immediately available. This has to do with internal due diligence as well, and this has to do with technological instrument as well. So the first point is really to make sure that those processes are in place to make sure that you can, in a very pragmatic way, reply immediately to the requests coming from the authorities or the challenges coming from the authorities. The second one was probably one of the tougher, is consider rapid, effective communication on your tax strategy, on your position, on your risk. And this has to do mainly with internal communication, of course, but in certain cases, which is even tougher, with external communication. Just to continue on what you said before, Mukesh, today there is a bit of a nasty debate here in France, in the medias, because almost every 2 years, there are long articles in the medias, and there was one 2 weeks ago, which created a big pressure on which it is explained. It's non-professional newspaper. It's a large public newspaper. Explaining that in France, there are two categories of companies. There are the multinational, the big company, the 40 biggest companies, which do not pay tax in France, and the smallest company, which pay roughly 30 to 35% of tax. And this is the way it's communicated. This puts big pressure. This is not good. And the outcome in France is that this has a group has just been set up just 2 weeks ago, I think, at the Parliament to further investigate that. There are clear technical reply to that. The technical reply is very simple, is that those big multinational groups develop strongly abroad, and that today, very likely, they make 80% of their profit abroad. And that in France, they finance the development, so they incur financial charges in France. So this is very easy to explain from a pure technical standpoint, but it's extremely difficult to explain that to the whole public. So communicated internally, sure, externally it's much more difficult, but it's important in the meantime that there is a clear communication of the contribution of this large group to the economy. The third point, as Mukesh explained, engage with tax authorities to establish more certainty in your tax arrangements, the dialogue. The dialogue is clear, is key. Everybody in this room knows that it's, of course, much more difficult to defend tax position in the context of tax audit when there is a lack of trust between the authorities and the taxpayer. The dialogue is absolutely key because things are much easier to solve and to manage when there is this trust existing between the taxpayer and the authorities. Fourth point, transfer pricing. Everybody knows that transfer pricing is key. More than ever, there is a clear pressure coming from the G20 meetings, which took place 2 years ago or last year. Specific focus, again, something in the media, in the mindset of everybody telling those transfer pricing is a big advantage to the multinational group to do what they want to do and avoid tax everywhere. As it has been said, there is room for optimization as long as we fit with the real economic substance. This is manageable. But again, dealing with an advanced prior ruling is easier when it is possible rather than defending a tough position in the context of a tax audit. It takes a lot of time, and you all know that the cooperation among the states, it's much more efficient than before. So managing by anticipation is absolutely key in this respect. 5, undertake commercially driven international tax planning and focus on tax structure that will enhance your shareholder return. Our common role, you as VP Tax, us as tax advisor, is to create some value, is to be creative, to be imaginative, to help you in managing your tax burden. But we have to be selective. We have to be selective. We have to clearly understand and mainly us as advisor, we clearly have to understand your business. The business has to drive, and our role as technician is to find the best solution, the best structure in adaptation to the business to minimize as much as we can your tax burden, but we have to be business driven and tax experts. And last point, moves to be made to fix tax issues on board agenda. You have seen at the very beginning, 24% as a top priority is not high. So this may be a question of internal communication with the board. But my feeling, based on what I can hear from large clients, my feeling is that things are improving with the audit committees. My impression is that in a large group, the VP tax at least once or twice a year makes a long presentation to the audit committees in which he presents his strategy, his risk, its constraints, etc. So probably this is not yet the case at the board level, but my feeling is that a lot of progress has been made at the audit committee, and the link between the audit committee and the board is another topic. So these are the 6 tax and takes that you can summarize coming from this survey. Program of technological to be sure that the appropriate documentation is immediately available, effective communication, transparency on the management of your tax position, engage with tax authorities to have a certain level of trust, properly manage the transfer pricing through advance prior ruling where it is possible, think about international structure which perfectly fits with the business need, and communicate as much as possible with the board agenda, with the board, so that he can feel a little bit more tax as a priority. So this was the presentation of our survey. If you want, we can now move to any question. If you have any question, of course, it's always possible to ask any question after that session during the coffee break. But if somebody has a question, it will be very welcome now.